everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a Jets loss. Playing with fire the last number of games, falling behind, miracle comebacks. Looked like it was going to happen tonight here. I mean, the Jets go right down to the wire. Give them credit for the push that they had towards the end of the game. They made it look dangerous, made it look at one point before Neil Pionk bobbled that puck like they were going to tie this game up here in the dying seconds. Instead, it's a loss, a regulation loss handed to the Winnipeg Jets. Trying to get up as quick as we could for this show here. Know that we jumped up a little bit early. It was Ken's idea. Ken was like, let's get up as quick as we can and get going for 10:35. So I show up here to do my sound check. Ken's nowhere to be found. Not in the green room, not anywhere. I don't know where he is. Hey, listen, we'll give it 15 minutes and we'll put out an APB. But regardless, what it means is you're stuck with Renny's thoughts right now. So I got myself a captive audience. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Not your characteristic Winnipeg Jets game. Okay, so let's back it up like we did before and talk about, just not just this game. Let's kind of talk about it on the whole from what we've been seeing lately. You get that Dallas game, which is a bit of a wake-up call from the games before that, where we talked about the Jets not having the effort they needed to compete against good teams. Carries through 5 periods. They steal one away in the 3rd period against the Carolina Hurricanes, and everything's okay. Everything's fine. Jets fans are happy. One of our highest viewed shows of the year. Everyone's loving it. It's great. Then they go into Buffalo and they fall behind a couple times in that game, but they pull it off again. But that game, what I talked about was the importance of that game in Carolina kind of being that wake-up call that we've been talking about for a long time for the Jets to get back to what they're supposed to be doing. And that Buffalo game sure seemed to be it, right? Like the Jets play the 3rd period exactly how they need to against the Carolina Hurricanes, that same old way that we saw them, the kind of hockey we saw from them in December. And then they go into Buffalo and they do the right things over and over and over again. They find themselves down in that game a number of times. But if you ask me, I think they were the better team for the entirety of that game. But they find a way to pull it out. And there you go. So you come into tonight and you're thinking, okay, now they're cooking. Now the Jets have figured their way back into this whole thing. They've figured out how to get into that same old structure. And then they have a game like this tonight where the structure was loose, near non-existent. This is one of these nights where it's basically, the Jets, I think for the most part, had more control of the puck. I think they were the better team. I think they pushed a little bit harder. But what they gave back coming the other way, they were just handing it back over. So many odd man rushes. The Seattle Kraken finally tie that game up. They end up getting a goal off the breakaway, a shorthanded goal. They give up a shorthanded goal. They get scored on the power play of the Seattle Kraken. So it's a night where they lose out when it comes to the special teams. But there were just so many odd man rushes in that game. So many times that the Kraken, I think, we're just not taking advantage of it, missing the net. There was a good break. A player sliced his dice and diced his way into the front. And Connor Hellebuck made a nice toe save, or if it wasn't a toe save, he at least forced him to the outside. There was another clear-cut opportunity for a player who kind of bobbled it and let it go. Jets, I thought, had been lucky to be at the point they were, and that's strange to say in a game where I think that the Jets were the harder working team and the better of the two teams. I think they were lucky that game was within striking distance because of all the grade A opportunities they seem to be giving up going in the other direction. Yet they somehow come away with the lead in the 3rd period, then turn around and give it right back after that. I don't know. This game to me is almost one of those ones that you do grab the game sheet, crumple it up, maybe you eat it so you don't have to see it again, throw it into the trash bin, burn it. I don't know what you do, but this to me, I can't remember a game this year in which I saw the Jets give up so many odd man rushes. This to me didn't look like the Winnipeg Jets at all in the way they defended in that game. Now, Let's turn it on the other side. Great pass by Mark Scheifele. Kyle Connor, gorgeous goal. Boy, the one thing about him, and we'll have to get into Kyle Connor, I'm going to write it down to make sure that we do talk about it. But Kyle Connor, a big reason that shorthanded goal ends up going that way, because he loses the puck and helps turn it over for the odd man rush. There wasn't a time on that power play that he touched the puck that it didn't seem to bobble off his stick. Seemed to have a bit of a tough game. Like, I've got get your tin foil hats ready, because I'm going to talk about this later in the show, Connor Hellebuyck, because I've got a theory on why he's where he is, that as it relates to a hot topic on this show. Nikolai Ehlers finding himself on the second line, Kyle Connor not being moved off that top line. But if he's not bobbling the puck, he's scoring a goal, right? Like, it is so hot and cold with him the way that he's playing lately, but that's part of it. But I mean, that push that Adam Lowry's line has, where they score the goal to tie the game up with just 8 seconds left on the clock in the second period. I want to talk about that as well, because this is something we've seen from this line before. Their push at the end of the game, really great. All in all, even as bad as the Jets were at giving away odd man rushes, called a frustrating game by Mark Scheifele, his head coach agreed. No one was happy with the way that they defended and the opportunities they gave up in that game. They still probably walk away with the win in this game, if not for a poor performance by Connor Hellebuyck. I know that's going to get some people's backs up, because there's a lot of people who just cannot handle it when you say those kind of things. The way I see it, time and again, we praise Connor Hellebuyck in this space when he deserves it, and he usually does deserve it. If you're going to hand out praise for when things go right, I think you got to make sure that you can stand up and point it out when things didn't go right. This is an off game for Connor Hellebuyck. It's a bad game for Connor Hellebuyck. His save percentage will reflect it. The first goal clearly reflects it. The fourth goal clearly reflects it. This is a night where Connor Hellebuyck was off, was not playing well, and very likely cost the Jet. When 50% of the goals you give up in a 4-3 win are, goals that were pretty bad goals, it's not your best night. And it definitely played an outcome in this game here tonight. Jets probably had enough to win this game 3-2, if not for those two bad goals. So add it all up, this is one of those games almost where we've talked about the Jets finding ways to win. This is almost a game where the Jets found a way to lose this game. That's my take on it anyway. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, everybody. All right, Kenny, I saw this just quickly here. Grassy says, Renny, this is my first time joining the live chat. We love it. The more the merrier. And a lot of people joining with you. I know a lot of people are very hurt by the losses, but 386 in the chat room to watch and come in here and jam out to his music. Great start to the show here. Great to have you here, Kenny. It's nice for me to finally be the one who could talk about how well-dressed he is.
That's right.
And not be sitting looking like a slob while you hog all the Vittorio Rossi praise. So I'm going to pile it on myself
as
here.
I'm
looking like a Vittorio Rossi, man. And that's because I go to Vittorio Rossi and I ask for Frankie and the boys when I go there. And they always do me up right, which is what you should do. Head on down to Corden Avenue. Go see Frankie and the boys. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. I promise you will not regret it. All right, Ken, let's get right into it. What'd you see?
Yeah, well, I mean, I saw a lot of what you saw. I saw 70 shot attempts. The Jets had no issue generating offense in this game. But I also saw some breakdowns, as you mentioned. Too many odd man rushes, as Adam Lowry pointed out after the game. A little bit loose in terms of some puck handling. I mean, Rick Bowness basically said he thought that the puck bounced over the stick of Connor on the shorty, but it was just a little bit of bad. Sorry, and again, the apologist theorists are going to be going crazy, but I mean, the reason Josh Morrissey had activated, so it was just kind of a little bit bad timing. There wasn't a defenseman back because there was an offensive opportunity to be had there for Morrissey. He jumped up like he should. But then when the puck kind of bounced or bobbled or whatever we want to call it, then yes, definitely a breakaway by McCann. Perfect shot by McCann. Perfect tip by Thomas Tatar. I didn't like the fourth goal at all, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you about the first one. I mean, it was a nice play. Joined the trailer. Maybe like you thought it was leaky through him, or
went right through.
3-on-2 rush. I mean, nice play by Schultz. I mean,
it's just Helly doesn't let a lot of goals go through him. It reminded me of
hey,
again, I like to be consistent. So I called out Carolina's goaltender for allowing a similar goal against Kyle Connor. Shouldn't happen. I called that a peewee goal. This is not a quality goal. I mean, sometimes you can go 5-hole on the goaltender. This isn't. Regardless, if I'm the Jets, I take a look at that one, and when there's a shot right square, right down Main Street, and it gets through your goaltender, and then he lets in the fourth goal. I'm more than confident to stand behind my assertion that this was an off night for Connor.
I definitely agree it was an off night. It's right in the middle of the slot for Schultz. I mean, yes, he's made tons of those saves before. I don't know if it was as soft, but I mean, again, you had a better view of it than I did, so I'll defer to you on that one. But yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck doesn't give up 4 goals in this night very often, right? So, yeah, I don't think he was sharp. I think he would be the first to admit that. It was an interesting game. We saw a lot of urgency from the Seattle Kraken, which, Sean, is what we would come to expect from a team that is absolutely battling on the periphery of the playoff race with a bunch of other teams that have fallen out of the race, right? So they found a way to find energy, even though they played the night before. They were without their best defenseman in Vince Dunn, who was hurt by that check from behind by Martin Pospisil. I didn't like it at all, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of the Jets, I mean, offensively, Rick Bowness will not have a lot to say about this game. And one thing too, I watched this one from home, Sean, and I think the one thing that was not evident or as evident, Sean, in the building. People think that Neil Pionk just flubbed his shot. Not at all. Adam Larson blocked it before it was stopped by Decord. It hit the defenseman's stick on the way to the net. So it's not that he just flubbed it and Decord still made a ridiculous save, but the reason why it wasn't in before Decord could get there was because Larson got his stick on it, and you couldn't see it from the back or the front angle. You had to see it on the back angle. So
he bobbles it too, right? Like if he picks it clean, he's got a wide open net and the defender doesn't have time to get there. Yeah.
But I'm just saying he was in good position, and yeah, sure. If that, people can say whatever they want. I just don't think it was a true flub on his behalf. But at the same time, you generate a chance like that on a 6-on-4, bury it, right? I mean, I get it. Those guys are professional players that are trying their best, and sometimes it didn't go their way. And like I said, that was just a great defensive effort. And even with the defensive effort, Decord had to make a ridiculous save. Having said that, the Jets let their opponent back in the game. I mean, we had talked about dominant third periods and 9-0 outscoring their opponent the previous 2 games, 5 in the third in Carolina, 4 in Buffalo. They had the lead in the third period. That's a game they need to lock. That's a game you need to lock down, right? If you're a Stanley Cup contender. And yes, we understand other teams battle back too. They get paid, all that stuff. But, just another room for improvement type of scenario for the Jets. The Burakovsky goals definitely got to be stopped. We understand. I mean, when Rick Bowness said it, and, good on him. That was one of the great examples where, yes, I mean, Logan Stanley slashed the stick of Tomas Tatar. No doubt about it. The stick broke. That gets called automatically. I mean, unfortunate for Stanley. I thought actually, Sean, I know some people freaking out on the old Twitter machine as usual, but I actually thought Logan Stanley was pretty good tonight for the most part until that penalty. And even then, the penalty is, to me, more bad luck than, a play that the coach will look at it. You don't agree? I mean, he's trying to get on the guy's stick. He's leaning on the guy's stick, right? I mean, what do you want him to do? We talk all the time about
he slashes the guy's stick. He's just passing through. He takes a whack at him, right? It's like one of those things where it's. I mean, I think
play happens all the time in the game, though.
If you're a coach, you look at it and you can think it's careless. I think judging on how he responded to it, and out and out took
Sure.
the reporter who seemed to be kind of trying to make an excuse for it, maybe similar to what you're doing right now. He wasn't taking that out. Rick Bowness was not taking the excuse right out. He was saying that's a penalty. That's a penalty in that
Definitely it's a
situation.
penalty.
I mean, here's the deal. Logan Stanley can't be the guy whose play that happens a whole bunch of times a game ends up going against him. He can't be that guy. He can't. You cannot be Logan Stanley in a couple games back, turn the puck over and get beat down the ice for a goal that ends up being an important goal in that game, and then tonight be the guy who takes a pointless slash on a player and breaks his stick, and then it turns around. And now, some of the people will give the old Bufflin thing out there. Logan Stanley's too strong for his own good. 2 minutes for being too strong, whatever. You can make any excuse that you want. Logan Stanley is trying to stick in the NHL and now finds himself once again the guy who is in the wrong place or did the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it ends up in the back of the Winnipeg Jets net, and they lose a game, and he plays a role in it. So this is, you can't be the seventh defenseman and get opportunities and come into a game and draw into the game and be one of the reasons that a team loses late in a game like that.
No, totally fair. I'm just saying that play is mostly a nothing burger if the guy's stick doesn't break. So that's why there's an element of bad luck there. I agree with you that
he whacked it really hard.
Guys slash on the stick all the time is my point, Sean. I mean, in a tie game, do you think that gets called in the playoffs?
If he breaks
in a tie game with like 3 minutes left?
Yes. It's like puck over glass. You turn around, you slash a guy. Listen, here's the deal with that. He slashes the stick. There's a rebound right there. It's actually almost a good play in that it's a scoring chance, because if Thomas Tatar doesn't lose his stick there, if his stick's not broken, he's the first guy to that rebound. And if he's smart, he just passes it back in between his legs to the guy who's coming across, and it's a wide open net. Like, the one thing I'll forgive on this is he's making his way to the net where a rebound is coming, and Logan Stanley takes a slash at the stick. Now, Ken, I think his cardinal sin in this situation is he's standing watching a guy go by, and he tries to disrupt him with a slash rather than stepping in his skating lane and disrupting him in that manner. So I don't think that Rick Bowness is happy about that situation. You can call it bad luck. You can say it happens 1,000 times or 100 times a game or whatever you want to say. But the right play there is to box your guy out from getting to the front of the net where the rebound ended up being and was that Thomas Tatar was going to get to. So Thomas Tatar was beating Logan Stanley to a spot. Logan Stanley slashed his stick hard enough for it to snap. I'm not just throwing this out and saying bad luck and all this kind of stuff. There's a better way to play that as a defender. And if you want to stay in the NHL and you want to lock yourself a spot down, then you have to find a way to make that right play. He didn't make the right play in that situation. The penalty was warranted. It should have been called. It would be called in the playoffs, because you're not allowed to slash a guy's stick in half when he's moving in for a scoring opportunity. Everything is toward here. The Seattle Kraken earned that penalty. Logan Stanley took it. They win the game off it, and that's all part of the story of this game tonight.
Sure, they battled hard. Great win by the Kraken. Like I said, great job by them. My only point is we've been saying how Logan Stanley needs to be tougher and meaner in front of the net. So, I mean, he tries to make a play and
he
the
could
stick
have been
breaks.
mean by stepping into him. I don't know.
Sure. Anyways, let's move on. That's enough with Logan. Adam Lowry, big goal for him. A lot of folks in the chat room have been down on Mason Appleton for a long time. Mason Appleton, 2 primary assists, very involved in the game. Huge shot block, even though they scored shortly thereafter. I think it's, Nino Niederreiter, there he is again, 4 goals in 3 games. That line was pretty good. Outside of that, there's, that's a good start for the buffet. But anyways, lots to discuss.
Okay, well then let's do you feel like we've closed out Logan Stanley? I think we don't need to talk about that anymore. Okay, I'm just going to handle, this is one of those times where I'm seeing the chat room get kind of like wound up here. And if there's 576 people who showed up here, we got to give them what they want. And a lot of what people are saying, Tanner Schmidt says, KFC is greedy. Sparky says, KFC is greedy. He's useless. Zatharless says, KFC is a selfish first line player. So what we've got here is either one person sitting at a bunch of computers and throwing the same message out there, or there's a lot of people out here who aren't the biggest fans of the way Kyle Connor is playing right now. Let's get into Kyle Connor because I've got a tinfoil hat.
Go ahead. You can
and
lead off.
No, I want you to go first.
I talked about Kyle a lot last game, and just to clarify, folks, this isn't a Kyle Connor versus Nikolai Ehlers scenario, although many people are turning it into one. I've got lots of time for Nikolai Ehlers' game. And Kyle Connor, I've said this a lot. Kyle Connor, is he a perfect player? No. There's lots of players in the NHL that are exceptionally gifted offensively that either aren't great along the boards, along the wall, or as great defensively. Sean, you were in the scrum with Mark Scheifele. What did Mark Scheifele say about Kyle Connor? I mean, people can say that.
I asked the question.
That's why I'm saying the floor can be yours. I mean, the Jets in the game were, not getting much going. All of a sudden, the puck's on Kyle Connor's stick, and bam, it's in the back of the net. I mean, the guy's an exceptionally gifted goal scorer. Are there parts of his game he needs to improve? Certainly. Does that mean he's going to be benched or stapled to the, sent whatever? I mean, people saying he should be scratched. I mean, come on, that's full on wake up territory. Anyways, those guys like playing together. There's no doubt. Listen to how Mark Scheifele talks about Kyle Connor.
Well, why don't you search for that? Yeah, because you usually have these things on hand. Why don't you search for what he says here? Get that clip. I'll start talking about it. I wanted to ask that question at the time because what I saw from Casey.
Here, I got it right now. Here, I'll go.
Okay, give it. Go. Spit it out. Spit it out.
Kyle Connor's goal scoring ability from Sean Reynolds to Mark Scheifele. He's fantastic, period. He's an unbelievable player. He's, I love playing with him. He's a guy that loves the game and loves to work at it, and he's always in the right spot. There's not many times that there's not many times that I can count during a game when he's not exactly where I know he's going to be, and he's an absolutely fantastic player. And then the follow-up was, is there any other way to describe his goal scoring? I don't know if it's something you can teach. He's just got a knack for it. He goes through all the right areas. He obviously has a fantastic release, and there's so much more that other than scoring, but obviously he's a fantastic player. I'm very lucky and honored to play with him for sure. So anyone wondering how Mark Scheifele feels about Kyle Connor, he doesn't want to have to come out and say he wants to. He said it. He told you all that you need to know about his predictability and everything that he wants in terms of having him as a line mate. Now, again, that's not to say that they shouldn't try Nikolai Ehlers with Mark Scheifele more, and I'm not advocating to not do it, but I just don't see it being likely. It hasn't happened that often. Yes, it happened previously when Kyle Connor played and excelled with Pierre-Luc Dubois. But right now, I don't see them turning the tables unless something miraculous happens in the next couple of days before the deadline. We'll get into that a little bit later on.
So I asked that question. One of the reasons I asked that question is A, because what I've seen from Kyle Connor over the last number of games for a while here is a guy who's like turned over the puck quite steadily, has had maybe an effort level that, someone had said it in here that he looks like he's playing like Mark Scheifele did before he had his revelation. I'm not going to say that that's way out there. I do think that there's like a level to Kyle Connor's game that he hasn't been able to get back to since he got back from his injury. Who knows what that's all about? I do know from players talking with them that there's like a confidence level that comes with the body, especially with knee injuries, that you just don't maybe feel that you have the push there. I don't want to create excuses, but I will say this.
Well, it's a fact. It's a factor, though. If it's got to be.
I mean, maybe it's still a factor.
It's a serious injury.
Right. But I don't know if he's had enough time to get over it. Listen, I don't know the answer to that question without going and asking Kyle, and Kyle saying, like, I've talked to other, Gabe Valardi at one point when he was coming back off his knee injury at the beginning of the year, told me, like, I'm maybe 85%, but that 15% where you make that push and it's not there, it's unsettling. As an athlete, you're so highly attuned to your body that when it's not responding the way that you're used to it responding, it really saps the confidence. Well, he went out after that while that was happening and absolutely tore it up. So I don't know if Kyle Connor feels that. I'm not going to say that it is or it isn't because I haven't asked him the question. As journalists, it's our job to ask.
Sorry, he says it feels good. when I asked him. But I mean,
right. But you never know.
What's he going to say?
He's
What's he going to
hiding
say?
something. Well, I mean, he may be truthful, or he
I'm not
may.
saying he's not truthful, but
I know. I'm just saying maybe he doesn't feel that way, but he's just not willing to say it. Gabe Valardi did say it to me. Gabe Valardi came out and said,
right.
it's not there. It's not there right now. Kyle Connor, I don't think is the kind of guy who would share it, even if it wasn't. I've got a little bit sidetracked on here. It's our job. You asked the question. So I think we have to operate under, if he's saying that he's okay, we have to operate under the assumption that it's okay. And that he hasn't been able to get back to the level that he was playing before the injury, that he's come back now. But what he keeps doing time and time and time and time again is he just keeps scoring goals. Right. And so my take on this entire thing is I think Rick Bowness, now take this game and scratch it. Right? Because this game was not the Winnipeg Jets in the way they play. All these odd man rushes and all these kind of things. That's not the way the Winnipeg Jets play. But I wonder if the difference between Nick Ehlers and, listen, I know that Nick Lynam is going to be like all over this. And I know exactly what he's going to say. I just think there's a much straighter line. Okay, I'm going to go there. Nick Lynam and a lot of people who talk about what Nikolai Ehlers does are going to say, but the amount, the goals per 60 and the chances and all those kind of things, Nick Ehlers, it's way up with him. So there's an obvious correlation between why he should stay there. But the obvious correlation that keeps Kyle Connor on that line time and time again is that he just keeps scoring. And he can have a totally terrible off night, and then he goes and puts the puck in the back of the net. And here's the deal. When you've got a guy like Kyle Connor who can have like a completely, totally off night, and you're the Winnipeg Jets, the feeling is you can probably survive it the way you play defense. With the goalie that you have, the goalies that you have, the system that you have, the way you shut things down is Kyle Connor turning the puck over or having the issues that he has, tonight turns that puck over, it ends up in the back of the net. You don't have to worry about that as much if you're the Winnipeg Jets, because the Winnipeg Jets defend so well and they allow so few goals that it's almost like he's willing to put up with those things with Kyle Connor, because what does Kyle Connor do time and again, whether he has a bad game or a good game? He can go out and he can pop the puck in the back of the net. He won the game against the Arizona Coyotes, and he won the game against the Chicago Blackhawks, and he scores again here tonight, and he just keeps scoring. You don't have to say, but this. Yeah, I know that he turns the puck over, but this, right? Which I think you kind of have to do with Nikolai Ehlers. But he generates this amount of zone time, and he generates this amount of opportunities. And when he's on the ice, this certain amount of thing happens. With Kyle Connor, it's just quite simple. Yes, he turns the puck over, but he just scores and scores and scores and scores. And he has bad nights, and he scores. And he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, and he scores. And he turns the puck over here and there, and he scores. And so the thing is, it's easy to keep going down that road because the Winnipeg Jets have been getting points. They keep putting points up over and over again. Kyle Connor may have off nights, but he's factoring in on the Winnipeg Jets' success time and time again, doing the hardest thing it is to do in hockey, and that's score goals. Okay, so to me, that's my theory of why he's there. And the other part of that theory is I asked Mark Scheifele this question because I asked him a very similar question about Nikolai Ehlers on one of our broadcasts. I've talked about it on this show before. I asked him to kind of give me like what he's seen from his chemistry and how it's grown this year with Nikolai Ehlers. And his response was to turn it into, well, Kyle too. Like it wasn't, hey, I've got great chemistry with Nick Ehlers. It was like, well, Kyle too, is how he turned that into. Tonight, he didn't turn it into, well, Nick too, or whoever else too. What he turned it into was a gushing adoration of Kyle Connor. He called it an honor to be able to play with him. There's a number of years ago when Blake Wheeler was injured and Kyle Connor was on a line with Mark Scheifele and Patrick Laine. Patrick Laine went up there and played phenomenal hockey. And when Blake was coming back, the response by Mark Scheifele was not, Patrick Laine did phenomenal work. We're so lucky to have him, blah, blah, blah. His response was, yeah, Blake Wheeler and Kyle Connor, they're my favorite people to play with. And I remembered at the time thinking, and I probably talked about it on this show, if I was Patrick Laine, I think I'd be a little bit like, what? Like, after all I did and how well I played, and the fact that he at that time as a goal scorer turned himself into an assist man to set up Kyle Connor, like, I changed my game to fit to work with you guys. And your response is, God, this guy's back. Thank goodness. These are my favorite people to play with. Like, listen to people when they're saying how they feel. Mark Scheifele clearly adores Kyle Connor and everything about him and everything about playing with him. And when you ask him about Nick Ehlers, he turns the conversation to Kyle Connor. So to me, tinfoil hat this or whatever, Kyle Connor keeps scoring goals. He keeps affecting the Jets in a positive way, as ugly as it may look sometimes. There's a direct line to his ability to score that allows the coaching staff to keep him there. And he's also doing it beside a guy who adores playing with him, and from his words, definitely gushes over one player and not over another. So if you want to know what the answer is to this question, and yes, there's an argument to be had that Rick Bowness should be going and saying, I don't care who you want to play with. I'm the coach. This is who you're playing with. But you have to factor in keeping your stars happy and all those things. I'm not saying it's the right decision. I've been talking here time and time again. I thought that we should have gone, or the line should have gone back to Gabe Valardi and Nikolai Ehlers, and that there should have been an attempt to see if there's chemistry between Sean Monahan and Kyle Connor. But if you're looking for the answers, they're staring you in the face. You may not like them. You may disagree with them, but to me, at this stage, the answer of what everyone has been asking about is pretty obvious here.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And again, we've talked about this a ton of times, Sean. It's not always the most skilled three players that have to play together. Look at all kinds of Stanley Cup champions. They don't always load up. I've said this before. Do I want to see Nikolai Ehlers on the ice more? Absolutely yes. Do I think he can play more on a line with Sean Monahan and be a dominant driver? Absolutely yes. It wasn't an accident that Sean Monahan compared him to Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau dominated on a line with Sean Monahan, and I think that Nikolai Ehlers can do that too. So, like I said, this isn't a one versus the other. Like, Sean, this reminds me of all of the, and again, this is totally different players and a totally different, subset or level. But this is Ville Heinola versus Logan Stanley all over again. It feels like people are just saying you have to either love one and hate the other, which to me is very strange. There's a lot of that. I'm not saying everybody, Sean. There's a lot of that happening right now.
Right.
And a lot of people.
Okay, so I'm going to defend this group, and I'm going to defend them right now, and I'm going to do it in a way. First, I want to say this to Zarthalis, who says there's a direct line to KFC to goals against two. I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying. The Jets have had a hard time scoring. Kyle Connor gets that done. The Jets defend better than anyone else in the league. So yes, Zarthalis, there's a direct line to KFC to goals against two, but the Jets defend well. So what I'm saying is their bet is I'd rather have them on the ice to score goals, which we have a hard time doing. And I'd rather put ourselves in a position where I feel like we can stop the goals from going in, because they do that better than anyone else in the league, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if you missed that or if you're just trying to rehash the same point over again, but I wanted to make that point. Where is this? Oh God, I guess I didn't start that last one, or
what are you looking for?
I missed it. Oh, there was one that I was trying to get to when we were just talking about this. The playoffs, that's what it was. Someone made a comment about the playoffs, and that's why I think this matters, and that's why I think this is why people are getting frustrated, Ken. If what I'm saying is the complete and total answer here, right? If the answer is that Kyle Connor, scores goals easily, the Jets, he turns the puck over, but the Jets feel that they're really good at defending, so his mistakes don't end up in the back of the net as often, and they need the goals scored, that's fine. But all these people who are talking about this, they've got a point in the idea that if the line overall plays better, there's going to be a point in the season where it all gets harder. And if at that time Kyle Connor's play and the play of the first line gets exposed the way that the numbers were suggesting they should be getting exposed, but they were just outperforming their results, well, that won't cut it in the playoffs. Teams will expose that kind of thing. And at that time, if you can find that Sean Monahan alongside Kyle Connor and maybe, Alex Iafallo, who's a good defensive presence, if you can still get him to score and there's still that direct line to him scoring goals, but that line is better defensively. And then you get back to Kyle Connor, Gabe Valardi, and Mark Scheifele, who are not only scoring, but dominating other lines. Well, you're better off in the playoffs. So I know what you're saying. You're suggesting that it's a one or other. And it's kind of like, people are debating over something that there's not that much of a difference. The difference may not show now. I believe what those people are saying. And you can say in the chat room whether I'm properly representing you here. But the difference is, even though it's not showing now, at the time of year when things get harder, it may show quite a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about matchups, well, I mean, if Adam Lowry's line is playing against the other team's best on a lot of nights and Mark Scheifele is playing against a checking line, that should set the stage for Nikolai Ehlers to be dominating on a line with Sean Monahan against, second lines or third defense pairings. I mean, there's always a method to the madness of the coaches, and I understand that fans often get fired up by deployment. We've been talking about this and debating this for all 13 years the Jets have been in existence, essentially, and that's okay. But there are often reasons for things that aren't said publicly or privately or whatever else. But let's just see how it goes. I mean, I've got no problem with Nikolai Ehlers playing more. I've advocated it in the past. I think I would have lots of time for him being on the top power play, but now the top power play has figured it out a little more. I mean, I'd have no problem with Nikolai Ehlers going on that line, playing more in the first period. One of the things Nikolai Ehlers has to be better at is being more productive in the playoffs. And I get it. Some people are going to say chicken and egg. Nikolai Ehlers was the first person that was frustrated by his lack of production. Last year, he didn't even get to play in the playoffs except for one game. 4 goals, 12 points in 32 playoff games. Kyle Connor has 12 goals, 27 points in 40 playoff games. I mean, neither one of those guys is producing at the level that we're used to seeing from them in the regular season. But they've also scored massive goals for their team and been involved in runs. And it's not always as simple as goals and assists, but these are productive players, and they can be productive players for the Jets down the stretch. I expect them to be, and I also expect them to be able to get the job done in the playoffs, no matter what their past numbers have said and no matter who they're playing with.
Hey, we got to get moving here. So I'm going to hand the Pristine Roofing wake-up call out to the Jets and the way they play their structure. It was off tonight. This is actually what the majority of hockey looks like. That, to me, this tonight, how the Jets played tonight and not looking like themselves is just a reminder of how good of a hockey team they are, right? Like the fact that they're not trading chances typically like they did tonight, or not giving away 4 or 5, 6 odd man rushes and opportunities like that, really just tells you how good this Winnipeg Jets team is. And this is what they used to look like. And this is what a lot of teams around the league look like. I can tell you this, the Vancouver Canucks, when I came back from covering them, and I've said in this podcast space, I actually had someone from Vancouver go at me with absolute hate for me saying something like this on Fan 590 in Toronto. But this element of what you saw from the Jets tonight is what you see quite commonly in Canucks games, even when they were winning very, very handily and consistently. They haven't been doing that as much lately. I don't think it's, just like I said with the Vancouver Canucks, because they do that, I don't think it's a recipe for success. This clearly isn't a recipe for success. But this wasn't the Winnipeg Jets. So they need a wake-up call to get back to where they are. That means it's time to give North End Rick that wake-up call. Give him a call at 1-204-981-6289 for any of your roofing, siding, exterior needs, or you could call Pristine Roofing at 1-204-237-7663. And you want to call them because if you know someone in your life, or don't know someone, if you just see that house at the end of the street needs a new roof, Pristine Roofing is gifting a brand new roof to someone in need, but they need your help. They need you to call them and tell them someone that you think fits the bill for someone who could sure use that new roof to really turn things around. This is kind of like life-altering kind of stuff. As a former roofer, you may have heard me say it before. If you have a roof that is going, it destroys your house, right? People know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But if you're not getting your roof done and you can't afford to do it, it just compounds and compounds and compounds price-wise to the point where some people really never get out from underneath it. So not only is a brand new roof an absolutely huge, generous gift that Pristine Roofing is doing here, but the money that it can save people down the stretch, we're talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars down the line that they may be saving someone. So great on Pristine Roofing, great on North End Rick. Get a hold of either of these two and let them know someone in your life who may need a brand new roof, because they're the people who are going to do it. Ken, you want to give Sweet Lou a shout out?
Right on. For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this community, including our podcast.
Okay,
Call
I
Lou,
want to
get in touch, and tell him Kenny and Renny sent you.
Okay, I want to talk about this. The Lowry line, that goal at the end of the second period.
Sure.
How many times have they done this year? I can think of when they had AJF was out there and stole that puck off Devon Tays. Similar situation. I don't know how much time was left on the clock. I think it was 3 seconds in that situation where he steals the puck off Devon Tays. And gets it to Adam Lowry, and Adam Lowry scores. Adam Lowry coming in with the heat at that time of game. There's something about him that his focus narrows in, and he becomes, that guy who knows how to find. It's almost like he knows how much time is left on the clock, and it kind of urges him into the right spaces on the ice. But what I'll say is this is the same situation. What that line is able to do is they're able to short circuit the brains of the defending players with pressure, because this is a terrible mistake by the goaltender in this situation. The goalie goes out to play the puck, and if he just allows the puck to keep going, it gets to a Seattle defender and no one's around him. If he stops it and passes it to him, it gets to the Seattle defender. There's not very much time left. He's got it in the corner. He could probably just sit and eat the puck in the corner, and they don't have to worry about anything. Seattle, it's almost impossible for them to get scored on at this time unless their brains entirely implode. It happened to Devon Tays, one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL, as AJF stole the puck, if you can remember back to that. It happens here tonight when the goaltender, Joey Decord, fakes out his own team, not the Winnipeg Jets. He fakes to throw it to the guy who's actually there and is the right play. And every single guy on Seattle thinks that he's going there. Why? Because that's where it should be going. But the pressure is too much for him to handle. And he flips it around, and it is a perfect turnover, because not only does he turn it over, but he gets all the Seattle Kraken players going in the wrong direction. This ability to get that kind of, like, these are goals that should not be scored. NHL players should be too smart to be baited into a situation where they would make this mistake. Take the puck, take it to the boards, eat it on the boards, and you get out of this just fine. But the Winnipeg Jets basically, it's like a magic trick. Give us the puck, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're hypnotized, and you just handed over your Rolex watch to the guy who stuffs it in his pocket and says, "See you guys next weekend. Have the beef," at the Vegas show here. But their ability to create that kind of pressure is really something that I think we got back to on this night. Even though there's a loss, the third line doing what they do best, creating that kind of pressure. They go out and they do it again at the beginning of the third period, turn this game. It should have been what won the game for them. We should be talking right now about how the third line won the game with their ability to generate that kind of pressure. We're not talking about it right now because of what happened and all the reasons we gave before. But Ken, this is another one of those times where the calls to tear apart the third line, to me, are just inexcusable. You should be ashamed of yourself, my friend.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to use the payoff here. Are you going to use the payoff here? Keeping them together is going to pay off, like our good friends at Cambrian?
Hey,
When's the
listen,
last
if
time
you
I
want
said
to
to
do my
break the
job for me,
lineup?
boom, let's do it.
When's the last time I
Hey,
said to break up the line?
listen, like I said,
You're gonna pick
they're
on me
watching
all
right
year?
now. They're probably Maul may even be, Scott Arniel or someone like that. Who knows in this situation? But we all know that the Winnipeg Jets coaches are watching right now. And you know what really paid off is them listening to Renny and not Kenny in this situation. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to Cambrian.mba to book an appointment online. Smart cookies over at Cambrian, just like the Jets coaching staff who
Indeed.
kept this third line together in this situation, despite pressure by Kenny and the Kenny Army in this situation.
I have nothing to say other than I just said at the start of the show, Mason Appleton, big game for Appleton. I mean, 2 primary assists. Adam Lowry was over the moon with the pass that he made. And Sean, how about Morgan Barron leaving that pass along the boards where it looked like he might play it, which sort of confused the Kraken defenseman and then kind of created the lane for Appleton to find Lowry alone in the slot. And again, just classic Adam Lowry. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, he joked about how, he's good for one of these a year, one of these long droughts a year. And, today he says, I finally got, I get the puck in the slot and I finally find the back of the net. Like, just classic. I was able to find the back of the net for once. Like,
yeah,
good stuff right here.
Self-deprecating.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. You're all done already. I feel like I'm hogging the.
Oh, their line was great. I mean, I don't really know what else. Like, what else do you want me to say? Like,
so you'll reserve your comments on the third line when it's time to get back to breaking them up. I see what you're doing here.
Oh yeah,
I know what you're doing. I'm seeing it. I get it. Fourth line. What'd you think of them? I thought Cole Perfetti had actually a really good night tonight. Dig in on what you saw from them.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Bowness obviously agrees with you, Sean. I mean, Cole Perfetti was out with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele in the last 5 minutes of the game, and a week ago we would not have seen that happening. So yes, I mean, I love the fact. Again, for folks who didn't see it, I spoke with Cole Perfetti after the game in Buffalo, and he was very raw and emotional about being a healthy scratch for the first time in his NHL career. He talked about how hard the last stretch of time has been for him, 15 games without a point. And, he's elevated his game. He got an important point the other day. Today was just on, what was he at here? 11:04 of ice time, 4 shots on net. So, Sean, 5 attempts. What were we saying about Perfetti? He needed to look for a shot more. We know he's a pass first guy. We get that. But this is a guy who has an ability to shoot and score from distance. And now he's looking for a shot more because he's feeling more confident. It's something that a simple chip play off the glass helped restore his confidence. And, as much as Cole didn't like it, that reset probably helped him in some regards. I mean, not that he needed any additional fire, but he certainly got some. So, and again, everyone knows how I feel about the way David Gustafsson plays. The guy works incredibly hard. I spoke with him the other day when he was coming back before he got back in the lineup. He was quick to admit that, first couple games of the Moose didn't go well for him, but he hadn't played in a game since December 22nd. So shocking that it wouldn't be smooth. But he finished strong, got on a line with Tony Nato and AJF, and had 2 assists in his last game. He's shown that his legs are there, Sean. That's the big thing we were wondering. I mean, Gustafsson, when he skates, he can be an effective player. And we know Morgan Barron's having a great year, double digits in goals for a guy on the fourth line. So, I mean, that line is involved. So, we've talked about this all the time. The Jets are about to enter a stretch, or they're in a stretch of 17 games in 31 days. So that's a lot of hockey, and they need to have 4 lines rolling. And, they're probably going to have to use some of their guys, some of their scratches this month with back-to-back. So it'll be interesting. I'd be very curious, Sean. I mean, I know that Laurent Brossoit just played on Sunday. If you're the Jets, do you play Hellebuck against the Canucks? Maybe you go to Brossoit on Friday, or how would you handle the goalies? Sorry, I don't mean to get off track here.
Well, okay. So
especially with a couple days between games now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that I like my take on this is I would give Lauren Brossoit the opportunity, and here's why. Because this is a night I can't remember the last night I saw Lauren Brossoit have an off night like Connor Hellebuck had on this. Now Connor Hellebuck plays a lot more,
Yeah.
so clearly that's going to happen more often. I'm not trying to turn it into that, but in a time where you're saying, okay, yeah, our starting goaltender had an off night. Our backup goaltender has been absolutely shooting the lights out. Let's bring him in. Bring him in, right? Give him an opportunity to feel good about what he's done so far. And then maybe gets a little bit of a burr in the saddle of Connor Hellebuck. Maybe that's a good thing, although based on the way he's played, he probably doesn't need any more momentum. And the converse side of that argument is that Connor Hellebuck says, after all I've done for you this year, I have one bad game, and all of a sudden you guys are gonna turn around and take me out of the net the next time.
Well,
Regardless, I think there's two teams here. One is the more dangerous. One is definitely the more dangerous offensively. So you probably want to have your starting goaltender. So the quick answer to this is Lauren Brossoit in for Seattle, in my opinion, and Connor Hellebuck in for the big hockey night in Canada game, showcase late night game against the Vancouver Canucks.
yeah, the one thing too, I mean, I could definitely make time for that argument for sure, but the other thing too about Hellebuck is he has so few, or it's very rare for him to have an off night. So often the coach wants to go right back to him after a game. That's, I mean, again, he's already gonna have to stew on it for 2 days to have to do it for an extra day. But again, it would be only for the matchup. It wouldn't be because they've suddenly, lost any faith in Connor Hellebuck. But I mean, the other thing too, Brossoit's played unreal. He's a BC guy. He's played great against the Canucks in the past. So, I mean, maybe I can also see
His
I can
family
also
can make the trip down to Seattle.
they can. They could.
Okay. We got to talk trades here before we keep going. No, sorry. I'm just going to say this quick. I think we're going long tonight, Ken. We've got 750 people in the chat room, so I don't mind going
782.
a little bit long. Yeah, boy, call your friends. Let's get this
Awesome.
over
Yeah, let's get
800.
her
That would
over.
be
Let's
good
go
stuff.
here.
I just want to say this: the Perfetti thing going up. I like the idea that they threw him up there because he was having a good game.
Yep.
I just think this is one of those times where they are abusing the goodwill of Vladi Namestnikov. Vladi Namestnikov was great tonight, and he didn't deserve to go down. He was one of the things that was really making that top line go. So moving him for Cole Perfetti, it's the right move to get Cole Perfetti up, but it's also the wrong move, if that makes any sense at the same time, to move Vladi Namestnikov down. Watching Namestnikov with that line made me actually think, if the Jets don't do anything at the trade deadline, and we're going to get to that right away after this, I could see a Sean Monahan, Nick Ehlers, Gabe Valardi line. I would be very interested in seeing that and leaving Namestnikov where he is right now, because given what we're seeing from Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, they could use that little bit of a boost in defense that I think Namestnikov brings. And still, Namestnikov thing I thought had a great night. So he's the cheat code now that the Winnipeg Jets have, that if they didn't make any moves, you could still have a good top six. But I don't know if they're really intent on getting Namestnikov back down to the fourth line. We'll talk about that. I just wanted to say, I've said this time and again, if Namestnikov had any type of ego to him, he would have been pissed off once, twice, 3, 5, 7, 9 times in this year with the Winnipeg Jets, because he definitely, it's funny because he gets opportunities that he deserves, but sometimes it's a little bit later, and sometimes he gets demotions that he doesn't deserve. So every time he gets these opportunities, he's earned them. Every time he gets demoted, he hasn't earned it. So, it's a tricky kind of player, because somewhere along the line, if Namestnikov was the majority of other NHL players, he would be like, this is ridiculous. I just should be getting more and more and more opportunities, and it should be translating into me making more money in my next contract, and so on and so forth. The thing with Vladi Namestnikov is he knows what it's like to be out in the league and lost in the wilderness and almost kind of bouncing out of the league. So he's not going to be the kind of guy who could do that. Long story short, liked Cole Perfetti going up, didn't like Namestnikov being moved to make space for it. Okay, last time we get to talk about this before the Jets have made their moves. What do the Jets need to do, Ken?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to add I still think they'll add a forward and a defenseman. I mean, what level of player, whether that player fits in the top six, middle six, fourth line, 13th forward, whatever it takes. I think that it's more likely to be a second or third line player personally, but they've got lots of versatile guys that can go up and down the lineup. There's a lot of guys out there. I mean, one person I've been curious about, Blake Grist mentions here, Tyler Toffoli. What I heard on that front is that the price tag is probably a little bit too steep. But I mean, there's a guy. What have we been talking about, Sean? The Jets are going to bring in experience, probably, maybe a guy who's won a cup, and maybe a little bit of feistiness. So yeah, I mean, Tyler Toffoli makes a lot of sense. He isn't a burning, he's not a burner, not. He wouldn't be in the Nikolai Ehlers or Kyle Connor speed category, but he gets the job done consistently. Very responsible player. He has a little bit of bite to his game. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that the Devils are going to be selling, so they're probably going to try to sign Toffoli, I would imagine, especially now after making the coaching change, right? So bringing Travis Green in on the interim tag with Lindy being dismissed, Lindy Ruff. On the back end, Sean, I don't know that it's going to be a second pairing guy. It's more likely to be someone who's in the 6-7 range. Joel Edmondson is a name that I've been, has been bandied about the last little while here. Obviously a physical guy, a Manitoba guy, has a Stanley Cup championship. He played incredibly well, Sean, against the Jets in that series with Montreal, where they made life absolutely miserable for anyone who dared to get near the blue paint. Between Shea Weber and Jeff Petrie and Joel Edmondson, and Sherratt was there too, right? I mean, they had all kinds of guys that were making. Wasn't he there?
In Montreal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those four guys were handing out cross checks like they were going out of style. So
that's what took the Canadians to the cup that year,
right?
Was they just would not, you just couldn't get to the front of the net. And in the end, what they found was, and we've seen this before, and we talked about it with this is where Kucherov's talent helped, right? And this is where Braden Point hit. Braden Point, I think, is one of the best players in the league in actually being able to get in amongst the trees and still find an opening. So what they did is they ran into the best team in the league in finding space where there's no space. And that's how they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But before that, they did it to the Jets, a really big, heavy team at that time with skill, just couldn't get to the inside. Same deal with the Vegas Golden Knights. And before that, they just decided to not let, Austin Matthews and the Toronto Maple Leafs in for, what was it, 3 straight games? They were down 3-1.
Yeah, 3-1.
So, I mean, that's a model. Hey, the Vegas Golden Knights saw that happen and went out and turned their team into that and won a cup last year off. At the St. Louis Blues, well, you're talking about Edmonton. The Montreal Canadiens essentially turned and saw what the St. Louis Blues did and copied that. So you're right. When you talk about that, when you get those kind of players who just are strong enough that they can just put up a wall and not let you to the front of the net, that has been proven time and time and time again to work in playoff hockey.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I mentioned Robert Bortuzzo to someone that I was talking about. He's on LTIR though. I think like if Edmondson was a right shot, Sean, he'd probably be a perfect candidate. And that's not to say that he isn't a good candidate anyway. I do think he's a good candidate. I think the Jets have been scouting Anthony Mantha before he moved to the Vegas Golden Knights today, and I think that they probably have their eyes on Joel Edmondson. He's a guy that they have plenty of. Their book on Joel Edmondson would be pretty thorough. From his time with the St. Louis Blues here as well. Because Mantha's unavailable, will they be going for a big forward? Possibly. They also could go, Frank Vatrano, his name's been out there. He's got one more year. Pat Verbeek is asking for a massive price tag. So again, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the Jets have some wiggle room on the salary side. Projected cap space says $5.8 million on Cap Friendly and Puckpedia, but again, there's some bonuses around $1 million for Perfetti that I think they're going to have to pay out. So it'd be more in that $4.5 to $5 million range, I believe. But still, I mean, this is a big thing for me, Sean. The sellers and the buyers, you're going to start to differentiate them in the next little while here. I think it's becoming apparent for more of those teams. Tommy Novak is a guy that Mike McIntyre and I mentioned, dump and chase on Saturday. He just signed an extension with the Predators, so he's off the table. I just think they're going to be active, and they should be active. Riley Smith is mentioned by B. Saunders. Again, big price tag for Riley Smith. I think Riley Smith be perfect. He's a proven playoff performer, won a Stanley Cup, scores. He's a good distributor, great penalty killer, can play on the power play.
It's
But
great in the playoffs last year.
he has some trade protection, so I'm not sure about that. Kyle Dubas, again, is asking for a big price. I think that Smith has one more year of term also. So there's a lot of potential suitors, but again, this is not just about right now. If they get someone with term, the Jets also want to keep Sean Monahan around, Sean. So if you're bringing in a guy who's making $5 million, now what does that mean for next year with wanting to keep Sean Monahan around? Anyways, all to say, I do think the Jets will be active. And there you go. Rob Mahoney says I'd be happy with a Lee Stempniak type of player. The Jets have a lot of versatile guys. And that's why I mentioned the other night Zemgus Girgensons would be a fourth line guy that can play all three forward positions and go from there. Do I think they could aim higher? Yeah, for sure they could. I would also say there's probably going to be someone that shows up that's not on any of the trade board lists. And don't be surprised if that's the swing they take. But yeah, we're going to see. I mean, I'm very curious to see how it goes. I do think the Jets will push some more chips in. I think that Rutger McGroarty is an untouchable. Same would go for Elias Solomonson. Colby Barlow, I think I would put in that category also.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not sure there's any other untouchables, but it would have to take a impact type of player if the Jets are going to move one of their top prospects.
I feel like, and some of the rumblings that I've heard out there is that the Winnipeg Jets are, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find, to your point, a guy who's not on the board, and they're trying to find term. I think the Winnipeg Jets have turned. Oh, by the way, we're up to 830 people in the chat room right now. How can we walk away from that? I think what they are trying to do is similar to what they did last year. They see this, especially the Jets now, because basically, July 1st is not a time of acquisition for the most part for the Winnipeg Jets. They see this and are starting to see the trade deadline as maybe their biggest opportunity of the season.
Yeah.
In that they know that there's chaos, they know that there's upheaval, but I think they take a look around and they say to some teams who are like, listen, things maybe aren't working out for you. We're not necessarily looking for your guy that we only have for a bit, but hey, if you're tearing that guy down here, that guy that you have over there with term, maybe he's making a little bit too much money, or maybe whatever the situation is. I think the Jets are looking to take a big swing. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to solve a problem that goes forward for the next little while. Sean Monahan is your short-term guy, but if they can walk out with someone they know they're going to have next year, then it puts them in a situation where they don't have all their eggs in one basket on Sean Monahan. I don't know what you're hearing, Ken, but like I do know from my time down covering that Montreal Canadiens game, I think there's a lot of people that expect Sean Monahan to end up back in Montreal next year. Now you never know what happens, but maybe Sean Monahan comes here and says, look, I'm just such a good fit. This is where I want to stay going forward. Maybe Sean Monahan decides his life is going to be next year. I think his life is going to be elsewhere next year. But I could see the Winnipeg Jets trying to, if they are going to move assets, I don't think the Jets like the idea of throwing assets out the window for something that is just, they've got till the end of this year. And then, Mark Scheifele gets hurt. Like last year, Mark Scheifele gets hurt. Josh Morrissey gets hurt. All of a sudden, something out of your control happens. It gets blown up. And all these plans that you've laid, you can't even see them come to fruition because of something outside of your control. I think what Kevin Cheveldayoff is looking for is the idea of going to people who he could keep around for a little bit longer. It's the pattern of how he's shown that he addresses this team now in the window going forward. So I think he's looking for something a little bit bigger. That said, I do think he's looking for top six. People are talking about middle six. Middle six doesn't exist on this team because I think one of the reasons they will make a trade is because they don't want, everyone talks about moving up Niederreiter, and I understand why you do it. I understand the argument, Ken. Niederreiter can score. He can bring grit to a line. He's the kind of guy who could spark a second line. But as I said to someone earlier today, if you're moving Nino Niederreiter to the second line to spark the second line, you're actively making the third line worse to try and make the second line better. I don't think the Jets want to do that. I think the fact that they've kept that third line together as long as they have tells us they don't want to break it up. Rick doesn't want to break it up, which means if they want to address the second line, and Rick Bowness talked about it again today. You can hear from his commentary that the second line and their ability to score is a concern to them. It's something I'm very confident will be surprised if the Jets don't go out and try to get a top 6 guy to fit into that spot. And I'm not going to wax any more poetic. I think you covered off the back end. No. I think they need to make a move there, and I think it's the kind of guys you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, one other guy too, and our friend Jeff Hamilton has been on this name this week. I'd be very curious about Alex Tuck.
Yes,
a guy with
this is exactly what I'm talking about.
2 more years after this, $4.5 million. He is
at a very manageable contract.
Manageable. I mean, when he's healthy, that's an absolute bargain bin special for a top 6 player. Plays with pace. He can score. He can pass.
It's gritty. He'd fit this system.
He would definitely fit. He's played in Vegas where I think he would be an absolute gem, and I think he'd absolutely be dominant with Nikolai Ehlers.
So to
Sean Monahan, but it's going to take a lot. I mean, they're not giving him away, and he was part of the Chamber of Commerce special. The guy's from New York, so
right,
an hour or so away, I think. So I mean, it'll be interesting, depending on the price tag. But they're looking to change their mix, I assume, Sean. That's why. That's why Buffalo. That's why a player of his caliber might possibly find himself, in discussions.
Well, and he hasn't exactly, like, the move there started out really good. I haven't taken a look at his numbers lately. He's not exactly, it's not like, other than the idea that he's a New Yorker, that you would look at him and be like, you cannot move this guy. He's a guy who will be more valuable to the Winnipeg Jets right now, I think, than he is to the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah. That's what I believe. So
17 goals, 40 points in 55 games this year.
There you go.
So 66 playoff games. 19 goals.
And great and gritty and strong and built for the playoffs. All these, he's exactly what the Winnipeg Jets need. So if that's exactly what he needs, and he's on a good contract, and you have him for a couple more years of term with this is exactly what I'm talking about, the Winnipeg Jets. This is the kind of move that screams Kevin Cheveldayoff. And Ken, yes, the price tag would be steep. This is the kind of move that is worth paying a steep price tag for. You're taking a look around. The Vancouver Canucks paid a steep price tag to get a guy who's a rental. Well, you turn around, and if you're the Winnipeg Jets, if we're going to pay a steep price tag, let's not just solve this problem now. Let's solve it for a while going forward, and then put yourself in a much better spot. That's what I see them doing, and that's what I think. That's what I think they are going to do, Ken. I absolutely think that. In fact, I told my camera guy, because Chevy likes to get these things done out of the way, and because it's the kind of trade that you're not like dangling guys right down the line. I think there's going to be some guys that have to go out to facilitate that trade. So other teams aren't thinking the same way the Jets are. So to a degree, that trade isn't, you don't have a GM who's sitting around being like, well, let's take it right to the final whistle and move this guy, like you are with Jake Gensel or someone like that, where it's like, let's see how high we can get people to bid. Chevy's trying to go off to the side stage and make deals that with guys who weren't sure they wanted to make a deal. Now all of a sudden he's talked them into it. Right. So the urgency isn't there. So I told my camera guy, long story short, be ready for tomorrow, because tomorrow, Wednesday, may be our busiest day of the trade line when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets. Anyways, Ken, we got to get rolling on some other stuff.
Quick update on Gabriel Velarde. Just, you were there this morning. What did Rick say there?
Sorry, I was having a conversation with a player, so you're going to have to take that one.
Anyways, sounds like, he's going to travel with the Jets, which to me would be a good sign, or should be interpreted as a good sign. But we also, we have to wait and see him until he's on the ice, I guess, is basically. If I see him on the ice on Thursday in Seattle, then we know it's just day to day. But, we'll see what happens. I mean, teams are very, very guarded at this time of year. There's no doubt about that. So anyways, he didn't play again tonight. Hasn't been on the ice since, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Julie Sue, I'm just going to say this. Julie Sue says the Sabres need another super tall dude to play with Tage, Stanley for Tuck. I know she's joking here, but it reminds me of what fans do time and time again. If you find yourself taking the elements of the Winnipeg Jets that you wish weren't on the team and trying to trade them to another team for the very best things they have on their other team, you're not trading right. You're not doing the game right. It's not, here, take our garbage and you give us all the best stuff that you have, which so many fans make the mistake of doing over and over and over again. That's not how it works. Buffalo's not sitting there being like, yeah, here's something that's really valuable. Give us that seventh defenseman who hasn't been able to stick in the NHL. Again, I know Julie's joking, but a lot of people make these trades, and I'm not just saying Winnipeg Jets fans. I see this all the time. Every single team, take our garbage and you give us exactly what we need. GMs don't do that. That's
just ridiculous. Like trading hockey cards back in the day, Sean. Just like trading hockey cards.
Exactly.
No. Take my
take Mikko Makela and give me your Mario Lemieux. Yeah, it's not happening.
Exactly.
Okay. Your Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Oh man, it's got to be the. I mean, there were a couple of good ones in the game, as you mentioned. I thought that Morrissey redirection or the tip over the boards was important at the time, but I really think that the block by Appleton, I mean, again, it didn't result in a killed penalty, but he did everything in his power to make sure that he laid out and blocked that play. So I'm going with that. And if you want to go with Josh, I'm
going to go with Josh. I texted that to you already. Let's explain it a little more, because I actually think this is one of the ones a lot of people may not have seen. But sorry, it was Beniers in front of the net, correct?
Yep.
So Matty Beniers gets a pass. It's a low to high pass from behind the net to the front of the net. He gets the shot off as a one-timer. It's going in the net. It's in the top corner. It's beating Connor Hellebuck, and Josh Morrissey gets his stick in the way and redirects it up into the netting. The vast majority of people in the building, and I think a lot of the people on TV, didn't even realize what happened, but Josh Morrissey steals a goal there. This is what I was talking about, how it's a funny situation. The Jets, I thought, were the better team vastly in that game, and yet they were lucky not to be down 5-2 at some point, because they were just giving away so many grade A's. This is one of those scenarios. This is a goal stolen by Josh Morrissey. I'm not sure how many people in the building saw it, but this is as we've got you covered as it gets. So for me, that's my Johnson Group. The Kenny and Renny OGs got you covered. Play of the game. It doesn't matter. Well, no. Hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that's the Johnston Group. The Kenny and Renny OGs got you covered. Play of the game. Moving on to the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it could have taken either one of the saves on Oliver Bjorkstrand, either the rebound special or the the great move down where it just kind of opened up down Main Street and Hellebuck got the pad out. And again, this is another one of those, Sean. It looked like it might have that one. It might have been wide, but again, he forced him into going wide. So I thought that let's just go with the earlier the rebound sequence there was just an absolute beauty of a save. Again, honorable mention, obviously, to Joey Decord with the robbery of Neil Pionk with an assist from Adam Larson. That's what I'm going to go with on that one.
To me, it's that Joey Decord save. I mean, holy smokes, at the end of the game there. Again, and actually I needed to check the angle. Was it maybe a shot that would have missed the net, or you're saying that it was redirected in front of the net by Larson? Yes, those Swedes, hey? Maybe he could have been the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. It wasn't as nice as Josh's. That was labeled for the top corner. Not
Larson also, Sean, would be an interesting guy for the Jets. I think they sniffed around him before. I don't think he's going to be moved by Seattle.
Huge price tag. If you watched him play tonight and you got him, that guy would go help any team. That would be Ekholm level. What the Edmonton Oilers got in Ekholm, that would be huge. You'd have to give up a king's ransom. I don't know how long he's under contract for, but if you were going to go get that guy, it would work. Anyways, that's
the trade would not be 1-for-1 in this case. So
no, you would be taking the cupboards and you would be reaching in. Imagine if trade assets were tin cans, you would be reaching into the cupboard and scooping your hand in behind it and taking the bag and just pulling a whole bunch of cans and dropping them into the bag. That's what it would take.
One more year at $4 million, by the way.
I mean, boy, that's to me, Yeah, I'm not going to go down that road. Anyways, that's my keg save of the game. Ken's keg save of the game. We want to know what your keg save of the game is, because if you do share that with us, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate sent to you by our great friends at the Keg. Usable at any of their 3 fine locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show is at April Whiteout from the comments sections. At April Whiteout. If you're there, I haven't seen you in there. You have won a $50 gift certificate, but only if you do the simplest thing, and that is direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Tell me your full name, give me your email, and I will have the Keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of their fine locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each of those 3 locations finer than the last. Moving on to our TC, take off the tinfoil hat, folks. TCB, lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Lowry. He had gone 21 games without. The way he handles himself, doesn't matter if he's not scoring, he still finds a way to contribute. His leadership has been fantastic, and just the response goal, as you mentioned, the importance of that line. That line always goes out after a goal scored or a goal scored against, and they delivered, in the last, whatever it was, 5 seconds or whatever it was, to tie the game. So for me, Lowry's a guy who, when the games get harder, you notice him more. And that's hard to do because you notice him most nights. He's the guy that's going to be able to get to the hard areas in the playoffs. He's going to produce, just like he did in the series against Vegas last year. And I mean, that's my lamplighter. I mean, there's a couple other candidates. And I mean, man, we went an hour and 15 minutes and didn't mention the fact that Mark Scheifele got his 700th NHL point tonight, with all of the other debate that was going on. But just a remarkable accomplishment. And speaking of Adam Lowry, who has the lamplighter for me, Lowry said Scheifele will be soon pushing 1,000. Yeah, it's a big milestone here. It's going to be pushing 1,000 points, and just ridiculous number. And as Mark said, he said hopefully more to come is what his response was. So very gracious in recognizing the milestone, and sounded like it was quite a roar from the folks inside Canada Life Center today.
Yeah, you know what I loved about him is like he actually stood up and reveled in it. Right. I've seen too many, and I do think this is the Wheeler influence on the team. And what we saw it from Josh Morrissey earlier on in the game. I don't know if I guess you wouldn't have seen it at home, Ken, unless they played it on the broadcast afterwards. But Josh Morrissey named the 3rd NHL Star of the Week, and they gave him a shout out. The fans gave him a cheer, and he gave a quick smile, and then went right back to looking kind of like, beyond focused, almost like a little grouchy. Who did that remind you of? Who's that remind you of? It's Blake Wheeler, right?
Blake was good at waving to the crowd, though.
Well, he'd wave, but it would kind of be like, hey, that's enough. I got to get back to the game here. The Blake Wheeler influence still remains strong on this team, and it had been with Mark Scheifele. I loved that Mark Scheifele did that. I love that he soaked up the moment. He stood up, put the hands up, soaked it in from the crowd. This is a guy who's chosen to stay in front of this crowd now for the next 8 years, and wants to be here in the city of Winnipeg. There should be a connection between the fans. They should give him their adoration, and he should soak it up. And this was an opportunity to do that. I like that. TCB, Lampy of the game for me. I'm going to go with the Niederreiter goal, and I'm just going to do it because it's one of these things. It's not pretty in any way, but it's him doing the right thing. Take the puck to the net, take it hard, don't peel away, keep with the play. It bounce off him, it goes in. This is another one of those. And listen, I've been talking about this. The Jets are getting a whole bunch of these bounces. The hockey gods right now love the Winnipeg Jets, but the hockey gods like players that play the game the right way and do the right thing over and over again. This is just another example of Nino Niederreiter doing the right thing, taking the puck to the net hard, and then just, he follows in the puck as he's taking the shot. It bounces off him and goes in. This was the third line continuing to do the right things over and over again throughout the game, winning the game for the Winnipeg Jets, coming out, giving them the 3-2 victory, and then the rest of the team just weren't able to follow with it. It was the right kind of goal for them to win this game. They just didn't have the right kind of defending or goaltending to win this game. So that's my lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what I think. Matters what you think. Share with us your lamplighter of the game. You are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our great friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you cannot Wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your very own 8-pack. Head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company and join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston Boulevard. Great beer, great food, great pizza, great everything, great environment, great people, great staff. And when the Kenny and Renny event is there on April 6th, you will see a great podcast. I can promise you that. Live show. Here's where you get it. Go to Eventbrite, look up Kenny and Renny live podcast. Get your tickets. It's the small room show. Can't be a big room show. So tickets will be limited. Pounce all over those while they are still there, everybody. Going to be a ton of fun. Can't wait to see you there. And that means it's time for me to hand out the TCB lamplighter from our last show. 16-pack. I told you to come. That's why there's 868 people in the chat room right now at 11:53 after a loss. It's because I said that you could expect there would be a 16-pack up. If that was a bot, sure sounded like a bot. I don't know. Hey, are there a lot of Russian bots watching hockey out of Russia these days? I don't know what's going on. Sounded like a bot. Turned out to be a bot because no one got a hold of me to claim the lamplighter. And that means Stu Smith, 8039. Stu Smith, Stewie Stewart, sounds like a real person. 8039. Its last name's Smith, so maybe he had to get in line to get the handle. But Stu Smith, if you know what you're doing and you're out there and you're a real person, you've won a 16-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale thanks to the bots out there. You know what you need to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me your email address. You do those things. And you, my friend, Stu, you have won yourself a frosty, delicious 16-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Congratulations to Stu. Nice job, Stu, says Rob P. I can hear. It sounds like, are they saying Boo Earns? Are they saying Boo? Are they saying Stu out there right now? I can hear it. I can hear it outside in the city. The neighborhood is it's like there's carolers outside saying Stu. Anyways, that's it for us. Thank you, everybody. Did a great job here tonight. Packing the room. Love to see it after a loss. Thank you for coming up. Thank you for not hiding from it. All you people who are hiding hey, if you notice that your friend isn't in the chat room right now and they're hiding, shame them. Shame those people to the extent of your abilities. That's what you need to do. I was going to make some suggestions.
Or encourage them is what Sean was trying to say.
No, I was saying shame them. Shame them into coming here. Boo, boo. And they'll think you're saying Stu, but clarify for them that you are saying boo. Anyways, thank you so much for everybody showing up here. Ken, you did a great job here tonight. You and I are going to be on the road together in Seattle and then Vancouver. That's going to be fun. And we'll
not just an unplanned meeting at the Newark Airport.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Full on here.
Listen, we just can't get enough of it. We never mind two ships passing in the night. Have you ever thought of it that there's a magnetism between the two of us that just brings each other together? Doesn't matter where we go. It's going to happen in Seattle. It's going to happen in Vancouver. Looking forward to it. We're going to talk about that game after that. We are going to talk about all the moves that the Jets make that I expect that they are going to make. We're all going to do it on the next Kenny and Renny show, but it happens in this space. That's where that show will happen. And if you appreciate these conversations that have been happening in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Johnson Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Keg, and TCB. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Great job. We cannot wait to do this when there will be so much to talk about after the game in Seattle. My first time to Climate Pledge Arena. Going to be a good one. Join us there, people. Thank you for showing up here tonight. We will see you after the next game.